I like it.
Yeah, we got music. We got music going. I don't know that the stream part got music, but you know, we're music.
I hear
We
music.
yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's
We got
a good
music.
sign.
It's always a good sign if we've got music. And watch me do this slow fade, fading it out. You know, we got it. We got a new little background thingy. But where's our
Where's our template
behind?
gone? There it
There we
is.
go. There it
There you
is.
go.
There we go.
Yes.
We're. You know what? See, now I have to figure.
Let's give a round of applause to Joe, who's multitasking as like the producer and editor, and multitasking, doing all the green screens and stuff like that.
Yeah, you
Just
know, it's working out. It's working out here.
first video podcast.
First
Episode
video
10,
podcast.
10,
First
10.
an episode. We're in double digits now. We're
I
in
know.
double digits. So
Believe it or not, people listen to us. Yeah.
you know, well, we hope they do. I mean, we know they do because they comment on it and stuff. So if they comment, then they should, right? Or
Mhm.
or they just comment on, you know, the fact that we posted out that we did it, and they don't really listen, but then they just say, "Oh, I loved it. I loved what you talked about at minute 32, even though it was only a 30-minute thing."
While he's drinking tea, I'm Justin Dawson from Ireland, and on the other side of the screen, to my let's get this right that way. To my right
Yep.
is
I'm Joe Way. That's me. And you're
from
to my
California.
yeah. Whoa, that's weird.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I have to point the other way to
Yeah,
get
it's
you
weird.
to point to you.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a setting here that
Hey,
could have
you know what'd be
changed
really
that, but
fun that we have to do at some stage? Just like throw a catch box across and see does it actually, go from one
that
side to the other.
yeah, I know. So I would throw it as like a higher AV one, and you would catch it as an all things techie.
Yeah.
You know,
It
right?
changes color as it goes across the screen.
That would be
Looks like
great. You know, yeah. You know, that didn't take you long. 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and you name dropped a brand.
I know. Hetma approved. There we go.
Hetma approved. In fact, there are Hetma catch boxes actually.
Yeah, actually,
Which
now
is
that just like makes it more fun if we just get the same one.
yeah,
Pass it
yeah.
from side to
That would
side.
work. That
Yeah,
would work. We almost have matching microphones,
yeah,
except you have the fancy green,
yeah. I have
Irish green.
yeah. As in lime color green. I was gonna go for the actual green, and then it's like, no, I'm gonna be radical and just like go a bit against the grain of salt of the green. Sponsored by Shure, by the way. Another Hetma approved.
There you go. That one is. See, that is, you know.
There we go. So what's been happening in the world of audiovisual between higher ed in Ireland and the US as Joe drinks his coffee and gets himself awake because he's been too busy partying lately.
I have been enjoying a lot of unemployment for the week. Been out and around and partying. It's been great. Yes, as you know, more details to come, but I am changing. So here's what's happening because we're the theme for this month is, you know, student experience. Yet, you know, I don't have to deal with the beginning of the semester because, you know, I'm transitioning roles.
I always
And
love when you
so
miss the beginning of semesters.
so now I got out of this one. But I feel bad for the team. We had a team lunch, a little goodbye lunch, and you know, on Friday, and they start classes on, you know, tomorrow, Monday. So for those of you behind the
I always
scenes, we are
forget.
doing this on August 20th.
August 20th. I always forget you start really early back to term. We don't start
Yeah.
until like mid-September, which is
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. My new institution doesn't start till mid to late September. So I will still have to do a beginning of a semester.
Yes, and more to come, viewers. We can say viewers now. More to come,
Viewers and listeners.
Joe's moving on, and like, do you know what, Joe? You joked about this before, and I went, ha ha ha, April Fools. But was that the beginning of like the thoughts of?
Was that the best thing ever? I kept that one going. I mean, like I this has been the longest April Fool's joke that wasn't really a joke ever.
What? So it was actually true back in April.
It was true back in April. Well, let's put it this way. It was true-ish. Like I kind of knew that it was happening, and we had gotten to a part where like if everything got worked out, it was going to happen, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So then it
Talk to my
takes time
agent.
to go
Talk to
through
my
all that.
agent.
Yes. But that's so April, let's see, May, June, July. Yeah, I mean, it was really 3.5 months, and it takes time to go through everything. But yeah, so we got there. We got there.
More to come. We're not going to say any
More
more. But like,
more to come.
you know what? You know what's sad? That there's very little memorabilia on. I would call it memorabilia now because you're moving on. There's very little memorabilia on the back of your shelves now relating to.
Hold on.
Move that over there. There we go. That's
How's
better.
that?
Oh,
Oh, then
no, oh, Joe. That's a
I
clear hint right
hmm?
there
Well,
on
I
screen,
guess
right
only
there.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
viewers would have to figure that out. See how I already swapped one out. I'm an easy sellout there. I'm a team player. You know what? It didn't take me long. It
He's
did
got the
not take me
T-shirts
long
and
at all.
everything already bought, coming soon.
Yep, yep. So, and also I was always a Dallas Cowboys fan. So getting something signed by Troy Aikman. So we got Troy Aikman signed on the top of it. And that
See,
works.
I'll pretend I know that. Like, from a guy being in Ireland, I pretend I know about American football. I don't.
Yeah. Well, Aston Villa won today. They
They
won
did?
very, 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 very big. It was a great win today.
Yeah. He's an Aston Villa fan. I still have. You still have the Irish fan club
I
top dog.
I do. I do. And actually, Amy, when I went downstairs, to or actually before I came upstairs to record and go down, and she's like, "How come you're not wearing your jersey today if you're going to recording with Justin?" I'm like,
Yeah.
so she
Next time.
actually gave me. I know she was making me feel guilty.
Yeah, I do that to Joe all the time, actually, as well. Coming up in this program, we're
Yeah,
talking about the student experience, and I'm going to go on a rant about
let's
student
do it.
experience.
Let's do it. Let's talk about the student experience.
Well, okay, first off, like the student experience, you're going to have to build a whole new model of student experience in the new place. But that's I've been limited to how much I can talk about the new place, even though
That's right.
Joe's put a, a
Uh,
sign in the
yeah,
behind us.
we're
But
this.
like for me, I've also moved universities during COVID and whatnot. But my gripe, here's my gripe. Okay, here we go. Everyone can take it off their headphones and stop listening now for the next 10 minutes. My gripe is when you have integrators coming in and believing that every room is to be spec'd the exact same way, especially when you work in a school of nursing environment and you're using clinical simulation, medical simulation labs. That's my gripe, right? Not every room has to be kitted the exact same way, even with audiovisual. So, what I mean is some other technologies and some cheaper alternatives to technology may work better in different room environments.
Oh, those
Now,
could be fighting words. Fighting words.
the problem is, how do you tell the integrators that? How do you tell your management in your school or university that there is something else, especially when they believe that it's only one way? And that is the hardship. That's the difficult point of finding a way to prove that this system is better. And usually the case is it's only better if you are able to get a demo model to put into place to show them why it's better.
Mm. Hmm. So then how do you handle because there's a big debate that you want everything to be the same kit, standardization across the enterprise. You're going to disagree with that.
I I'll agree and disagree in the same line, Joe. We've
Cop
talked
out.
about this before on different episodes of Across
Hmm.
the Ponds. When you have a good team that's working behind and a good integrator that's coming in, reading what is on your tender, reading what's in your scope document, and performing your scope document, and the most important thing, after sales service. Then it works in that environment, like what you have had all the time in your universities. But a lot of people are shocked when they hear that, like, we don't have full keys to the door. We don't have full keys to go back into the back end of the control panel that is usually locked down with the integrator, which is fundamentally wrong.
Mm.
Especially when now, not every school on our campus may have tech officers like myself and my colleague that will want to get into the back end. And there's good reasons as well to lock down the system because they don't want it messed around with, or programming changed or whatever. But like the code should be given
Yeah.
as a fundamental, and that's what wasn't happening back with us. And then, like, there's times where we were discussing improvements to the labs, and they're like, "Oh, that wasn't in the original scope document, so that's going to cost you extra." Well, no, that shouldn't. Integrators shouldn't be using that line. Integrators should be
Mhm.
working with you as the end user and the customer.
Yeah. So,
And
all right.
yeah,
Okay. All right. So with that, then because we're talking about student experience, especially at the beginning of the school year,
mhm.
where is it that the students end up suffering and paying the price for
Well,
that?
here that I won't even go as far as the student. I will talk about the student experience, but I will take a step back and go, it is the staff experience first before the
Mhm.
student experience. Okay, like we had a system previously where you go to the touch panel, you press it, and it would take 30 seconds for the room to become live. So, as in the monitor switching on, the camera being ready, you're being able to see things in the room. And then if you wanted to link it with other clinical education labs in our clinical education center, that would also take 30 seconds. So it's 30 seconds per room. You have immediately lost the staff member. That
Mhm.
that's that's stage one. Stage two was far too many, and I know I've talked to your Lex um over there about having a proper user interface. There was too many menus on the old
Mhm.
interface. So I'm going to do a plug here, and as Joe knows, I do a lot of plugs. We have been the first in Ireland. We talked about this in a previous episode of Across the Pond. We're the first university in Ireland to integrate Wolf Vision in our labs. You might have seen a couple of things if you follow me on LinkedIn, on my social media, so you'll see that I was talking about Wolf Vision a lot recently. The guys came across for one day. Myself and my colleague installed the equipment, which is the synapse in each room. We only have 6 rooms, but the fact is, within a day, we had everything programmed to spec.
Yeah.
We have a user interface where it's literally drag and drop. And yes, I know you can do that with the big brands, but for us, our rooms might not expand in size, but we will have different scenarios. As show plays music, dun, 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 we'll
I didn't
have
mean to do that. All right, there we go. God.
Zach the technician. Uh, we will have different scenarios where staff will say, "Oh, do you know what would be great if we can share screens with these 2 rooms only, but there's going to be other scenarios going on." If you're using if you don't have an in-house programmer in a university, you'd be going back to your integrator and you'd be getting these things programmed at a very costly price versus having the ability to go into the back matrix of Wolf Vision and be able to just change it there and then. Like I was doing changes during the week while my colleague was off, adding additional IP cameras, which would usually cost us money to get in the integrator to do it. And I don't know about you, Joe. Right. That's one step. Another thing that grinds my gears is like when you want to get things changed, and I'm sure you've experienced this over in America. You want to get things changed, you call in your integrator. Hopefully, they have been communicating with you by email and they'll come in at a set time. Not always the case here in Ireland where they call in when you're in the middle of another meeting, or you're just about to go to a meeting and they thought that this was a convenient time for them. No, it should be a convenient time for you, the customer. So
Mhm.
all these
Oh, that
steps,
that gets me too.
that does get, oh,
Oh,
thank you. It
or
does happen.
the best part is they show up at 9 a.m. and then wonder why the room's not available.
Yes.
And then they're like, "Oh, when this class is done, is the room available?" No, there's like 9 more classes today.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
check in with us.
Mhm.
Check in with your customer. That goes out to all the integrators out there. Check in with your customer and see is the room available. Or they'll fix something and not close the ticket or not tell you what they changed. Oh,
Mhm.
it's fixed now. Or always, not always, but a lot of the time, making it that it's your fault that something is not working. Oh, you must have done something. No, we didn't do anything.
Mm.
It's just not working. You know, um, or it must be your network. Well, we're running a 10 gig switch in our room. So like these type of excuses don't go well when you're the customer. So having I think the great thing is we have full control that we're able to make the changes now in these 6 rooms. We're able to listen and identify with our staff, because a lot of the times integrators will just sell you what they think will work in the rooms. And a lot of the times, and I hope you can relate to this, Joe, a lot of the times they get away with putting things, and then you're starting off at phase one of having the wrong system. And then as you go along, you're patching over a system
Mhm.
that's wrong, fundamentally wrong since the get go.
Yep.
If
Well,
you,
and
d- if,
here
if the staff don't like it and day one, well, then they're not going to implement it with their students, and that affects the student experience.
yep, yep. And here's this goes all the way back to your whole thing about not sharing code. The reason they don't wanna share code is because they just use the same code for 8 different jobs.
Exactly.
And so
Have you ever noticed like things where you just go, if I had that code, you would see that it has, as you just said, been used in another place.
well, I think I've told this story before. I haven't told it in a couple of years, I don't think, but I remember the first time. This was back when I was at Cal Baptist University. Again, this is a dry campus, no alcohol, right? This is a
Mhm.
Christian school. And I remember the first time because they didn't want to give code, and I ended up figuring out and finding out how to get it and download it myself. And they would always use the same kind of template. And I downloaded it, and like one of the room like areas they call was like called like one of the screens was called like back bar 2. And then
Uh-oh.
it was like main state, like, and then there was one that was like stripper pole 4. And it was
No
like,
way.
oh yeah. And then, like one of the, even like the input name was like direct TV. We didn't even have direct TV. And then it was like, they literally just like masked over like the button with a different, like a different name, but that was all that they did. And everything else on the back end control was basically from like a strip bar that they had done in the
Yeah.
past. And and then again, and it was for like a 16 by 16 thing. So if I just had like an 8 by 8, they just didn't use the other
Mm.
ones, right? So you could tell how many times they've probably used this same thing, and whoever that guy who was installing it just knew, whatever, back bar 3 was just input 3 or whatever, right? Like they just
Mhm.
knew what it was. And until I got it, and I was like, I could not believe it. And then I'm sitting here going, how many rooms on this campus have that?
Yeah. So
Like,
you have to go back and yeah, and figure
and
that out.
yep, yeah, not fun, not fun.
But you know what? Like, I've even had people go, "Oh, but how how's why aren't we using things like Air Media 3 or whatever in the rooms?" Or you know, it there's other ways and other hardware and software for bringing your own device, that it doesn't
Hmm.
have to be a Crestron Air Media, you know? And, I've heard from not just technicians that work in higher ed, I've heard across the board that there has been a couple of problems with the latest Crestron Air Medias. I don't know, have you experienced problems with them?
No, I mean, I think it has more to do with network and the way your stuff is set up.
Hmm.
We always used at USC, we just used the Crestron UC engine, the Crestron Flex, which has the built-in sharing through Zoom. So we never had Air
Yeah.
Medias. So, but I've heard people say, but again, I think it's like everything. It depends on how your network is set up, how you're sharing. If you have to, depending upon, are you using an Apple and you're allowed to use Bonjour? I mean, I think there's a lot of other factors whether you have an Air Media or a Share Link or the Wolf Vision or whatever or a Screen, like they all do basically the same thing, and they're all going to work fine if it's the right situation you're putting it in, and you can work with your network team to make it work fine. If you just install it for the heck of installing it and don't do all the other proper configuration, doesn't matter which one you're going to put in. You're going to have a problem with all of them. So I think
Hmm.
there's kind of half and half on that, right?
But
And
do you know what? Like going back, like student experience, I think nearly, I think the one thing that between universities that I've been working with, UCD and DCU, across the board, and even if you go visiting universities, and you know, yes, problems exist, and problems happen on a daily basis across universities with people using equipment and just doing one lecture in a hall and then moving on to a different lecture theater. But audio, I think, some people will say video. Here's a question: is it more important, the audio or the visual in a room for the student experience when they're coming into a classroom? And I would say, if it's a large lecture theater, the most important thing is that the lecture can be heard and it's audio.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I think most people would agree with that. I mean, that's the one thing like we realized during COVID with our our Zoom calls and stuff. If you didn't get a solid video thing, what did you do? You just turned off your camera so that people could keep
of
hearing
course,
you,
yeah,
right?
that's a good example. Yeah, when we were working through lockdowns, yeah, of course it was. So, but the amount of times, and even m- me going to different conferences, with like or site visits in different universities across Ireland, that they just have a simple podium mic, and then you go, well, that lecturer is walking away from the podium. I can't hear what that lecturer is saying, you know,
Mhm.
and no one thinks about, okay, that's part one, and part two is like the lecturer or the staff member at the front. If a person's asking a question right down the back of the lecture theatre, they need to hear that student too. And a student sitting at the front is not going to hear that student asking that question unless they're shouting. Um, you know, like forget about the whole idea of having any student that has additional needs that needs to have, like, I mentioned this before when we did our post ISE program. There was a booth, um, actually down by Aurora. I can't think of the name of it, but they were doing podiums where the actual AI was a ticker of what the presenter was talking, and I thought that is phenomenal. That should be in every university globally. That if you're sitting at the back, you can see what or we should have the technology now where if a lecturer is giving a presentation, that you can have a ticker going across a
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, well, and so I was going to go to that too because when you said which is more important, audio or video, well, that's a video thing, and that's
Yes.
an accessibility thing.
Hmm.
So I think it has to do with like to me, I would like to see a lot more hyper personalization, use of cell phones. I would love
Yes.
to see if you need something. Again, it comes from quality encoding, right? If you can't ingest the audio or ingest the content, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter for the far end. But once you get quality ingestion, then yes, whether you use voice lift and you want speakers and all that, or let someone use their cell phone, let someone use their laptop, put their own in-ears in, right? Let them use, gear that works for them. And then always, I think closed captioning and transcription is a must and it should be part of everything and everything moving forward, which means, and it's okay, like find a good app where they just tune into the room, and there are some good products out there, especially some app enabled products that then let you see the transcription while the person is speaking. I mean, I
Mhm.
know it's going to be delayed. It won't be in real time,
Yeah, and that's
but
that's the like, I remember talking at LTSMG with the guys from T-Loop, and, like, or, Audionics. Is it Audionics? Um, but they were talking about the delay, and at least with T-Loops, there is no delay, very little, milliseconds of a delay, compared to some of these apps where you are relying on the connectivity. You're also, relying on the student's cell phone connectivity, and whether that's up to speed and up to standard. So you'd say, well, but again, it comes back to the closed captioning and the transcription, that at least they could read what's going on along
yeah,
the way. But there's I think across a lot of universities, Joe, and this is a global thing, is they can start concentrating on a new building and a new spec and the new technology in that building, and then old buildings get left behind, and you all of a sudden, across a campus you can have a new building with the latest tech, but no one has touched building A that's been there for 20 years and really needs a refurbishment. Or sometimes, as budget restraints happen, you get new building passing down equipment to old building, compare, and again it comes into the whole idea of a universal standard. And I look, don't get me wrong, we have gone wolf vision in our clinical simulation labs. you know a universal system works well if the correct UI, if the correct programming and the access to this programming is across the whole board with an AV team or an IT team that can access it. I have
mhm,
no problem with that whatsoever. But when they can't access it and you're relying on the integrator to come in and make the changes and implement, and then you have to say, how many schools have been consulted properly to go, well, this is what we want in our school, rather than the university universal standard. And I'm sure, like, hey, I'm preaching to the converted here. Joe, you've had this for years in different universities, whether it was Cal Baptist or whether it was moving to USC. You made a lot of changes when you went to USC.
mhm. Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you. And this is where I think it's important, especially in higher ed, right? I mean, and I'll say if you are control of an enterprise,
Mhm,
right, and you can impact so many users, like I look at it as a risk. Where is the risk line I'm willing to take?
mhm.
If and people ask me all the time, or say, I can't afford to bring an entire, team in house. I don't have the budget for it. I can't bring in. I've been blessed to be able to bring in great teams. And a lot of people say, well, I can't do it. I don't have the money. I don't have the budget. I can't. So where to do it? And here's the way I look at it. I want control of everything that is one or two steps away from my end user.
Mhm.
So if it has to do with the operation of the room, access to making changes for them, operability for it, I want that. That means my on site teams, and that's where I always say I like to kind of own two sides. I got on site support. I want to own that, and I want to own design and programming because those are the two things that impact one step away from somebody. I want to
Yes.
have
Yeah.
control right now. Installation, terminating cables, I actually don't need I don't need a team for that. I don't mind hiring that out. Now, will I have some
So long
technicians
as it's
tier 3?
tidy. So
Yes.
long as it's tidy.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean again, you can write that into the contract.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's pretty easy to write, here's the standard I expect, and guess what? You don't get the last check and you don't get the last payment until it's done. Like, so those are
Well,
easy
hey, let,
things
let's
to
go- let's go- let's just interrupt you for a moment
right?
there, and you go and say the last check. I think a lot of problems here in Ireland is that you'll have, well, we have our normal supply chain issues, but the way our budgets work is sometimes our integrators are paid before they even plug in a network cable.
Hell no.
Yeah, I know, but it's, yeah. And, I don't agree with it either, but, like, that's the way sometimes the budgets go of, like,
Like,
there's money
yeah,
left
no.
over, so spend it before we lose it type of
Like,
approach.
I mean, I don't mind. I mean, obviously, they need to get some prepayment. A lot of times a common thing will be, 20% or even sometimes 50% if it's a
Mhm.
specialized product and they have to order a large video wall or something. So
Yeah.
I understand some percentage up front and at certain
I
trigger
say upfront
points,
for the products, yeah. Yeah, but
but
I think it should
but
be that, like, if you
sign
haven't
off?
installed, yeah,
Uh-uh. Uh-uh. Not
yeah.
until I get sign off and I walk off and my project manager walks in and goes, "Yes, this is acceptable."
And
And if and
I wanna just address that that's not just me talking about my university. I've heard that across a lot of Irish universities where they've had to hand over the money first because they have money in their budget and their term or their year starts from maybe September to September, and they have to spend the
yeah.
money.
Yeah, no,
Sorry,
and I guess
go ahead with
we
your
hear
thought.
about that. We hear about that all the time. Usually, I think the spending money has to do with getting extra product and stuff, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I can see prepaying services and stuff, and that's where you have service contracts, and I can see prepaying some of those if you have to use some of your budget. But again, that's where you more remote monitoring, those types of things, utilize services that yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I get it. I just think you have to be wary of what you're spending it on, right?
Yeah,
And
but,
where
like,
you think that value is going to come.
over in USC, like, you would have a couple of different integrators. You wouldn't just have the one integrator. And
Correct.
again, that's another style that you see a lot of here in Ireland, where it's just the one integrator that's won a tender, so therefore you're stuck with that tender
Yeah.
or
Well, I
integrator.
mean, we do bid processes and stuff for each individual job, but yeah, no, they're not assigned by the university or outside of me and all of that. And again, I would say too, it also depends upon the school. There are probably American schools too, where hey, this is you know, um, I've heard of schools and where, the big boss has a buddy who is, this and doesn't matter. That company gets every job no matter what because they're buddies, right? Or it's done through, or maybe facilities office or capital construction decides the AV integrator, not the AV department,
Mhm.
right? But those are things I think you have to handle internally, right? That's where you go to your leadership and say, here's why that practice is a bad practice,
Mhm.
right? Here's how we can, well, one, save money, bring better services. Because in the end, bringing this all full circle, it's the student experience that gets
Yeah,
impacted in the end,
and
right?
I've spoken about this previously, Joe, and we're still in the same predicament that an email went across the whole of DCU staff saying, if you have a spare room, you can earn up to this amount tax free. Students are crying out for accommodation because we have a housing crisis here in Ireland. So again, it's this question of, do students want to be on campus, or do they want it virtual, or should it be hybrid? And you know, I firmly believe that, I know it's very difficult to do hybrid in a nursing capacity in a medical school or school of nursing because they have to do the practical. But if there is theoretical stuff, and we're in a housing crisis, and student accommodation is few and far between here in Ireland. Shouldn't we be giving the approach of being able to do hybrid across all classrooms and clinical education centres? And that's another thing. Like, I would count the three most important things now is good audio, good visual, and being able to stream
Yeah.
a classroom or an environment in good quality. Now, I'm not talking about 4K. Okay, here we go. I've opened
Let's
up a
do
can
it.
of
Let's
worms.
do it. Let's go 8K. Let's go all the way.
Let's
Do
go
it.
8K. Yeah, you don't need to do 4K.
Wrong.
Wrong,
Wrong.
wrong. Go on. Why is it wrong?
Because 4K is just better quality. Why not? I'm not lying. Let's just go 8K. I mean, the
Yes,
human eye is
ads.
8K. So if you want
Okay,
as much if we're not done changing
because
resolutions until we hit
Microsoft
8K
Teams and Zoom do not stream our output in 4K
yet.
yet, and not going to be for a while.
No, they will, because here's the thing. And this is what I'm trying to. Actually, I was over at Samsung headquarters here, their experience center here in
Plug,
LA
plug,
last
plug.
week. See, there you go. But I was there, and they were holding an event, and I had this conversation with a colleague who said, I don't have our infrastructure. I can't handle 4K. I don't need it. We're going to do 1080 and blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. But here's the thing: everything is moving 4K. Everyone's home TVs are 4K. Your laptops are 4K. Our faculty and our students are creating content in 4K. It'll soon be 8K, right? Apple's already at 5 and 6, right? We're going to be there. Now, do we need to think about things like, physics is physics, and how much bandwidth can go through a cable, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not right. See? That's a misnomer. Because what we can change and what is developing, and I saw this at CES, compression is getting better.
Yes,
So if
I
you
will
have
agree with you on that.
better compression technologies and better encoding and decoding, that's why you can send, for example, 4K relatively easily through a 1 gig line using NVX. Now, is it breaking it down and then rebuilding it? Yes. Does that mean you're going to get an extra frame of latency on each end? Yes, right? But that's getting better. And even our streaming technologies are getting better, right?
Mhm.
You think in a home, a
Like
normal
if you go away from NVX, the NDI type of approach is getting better as well.
yeah. And even better. Yeah, I'm just talking about a simple encoder decoder, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Lona has great ones. I mean, everybody has a good, encoder decoder that can pass 4K
Mhm.
on a 1 gig, right? The
Yeah,
math,
yeah.
and here's the thing: the math is supposed to tell you it can't happen, but the fact is it can happen, and it is happening. And the compression technology, who's leading the compression technologies are streaming companies, the
Mhm.
Netflixes,
And okay,
those, and Apple.
this is a conversation that I had actually with my management, and also had it on different podcasts of going, stop thinking of okay, quote of this is the record bit, this is the edit bit that I have to look
This,
straight at camera. Stop thinking of a classroom as a lecture capture and start thinking of it as a mini broadcast, because that's what we've been doing. And that's what we've been doing since COVID. We're doing mini broadcasts. We want the ability to be able to, the students be able to come in, or a guest lecturer to come into a room. This is not magical anymore. We have these type of user collaboration software systems like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. So we can do it, you know, and then for live events, we can integrate 2, 3, 4 rooms into one stream and bring it into a classroom. And that's what we should be aiming to do as a normal standard. And also making it that the end user, the staff member, is able to drag and drop onto screen and bring in a classroom. That should be the user experience. That should be the staff experience, and that should be the student experience. However, there's a however. We talk about
That was
4K.
a good bit. I mean, that was a good soundbite right there. Now you
That
throw in
is,
a however. Now you're gonna throw in a
well, yeah,
however.
but I'm coming back to you talking about 4K. And yes, on campus, if the campus can do it. You've been across Ireland, Joe. There's rural parts of Ireland that would be begging for fiber connection. And
Yeah,
that's, yeah, and you're talking about, like, people want to come to the capital. People want to come to Dublin and be able to experience the campus life or whatever. But they also might say, "Whoa, Dublin's very expensive. I want to go back to my rural house in the countryside." And they won't have that internet connection. So that's why you can't stream 4K.
yeah, okay, but see, I'm gonna throw it right back at you. Look at things like YouTube and even Netflix, Apple TVs. They can tell what your downstream resolution strength, like
Okay,
what
Zoom
strength of your
token,
bandwidth.
Microsoft Teams, yeah.
So it's the same. So in fact, the argument we were having earlier about which is more important, audio. Well, ingestion of the audio is most important. If you
Mhm,
can't capture good audio,
mhm.
it doesn't matter what anything else is. Well, I think this is the same thing with streaming. You have to ingest quality content. So why not put as high resolution on your ingestion because it can, and then utilize the software that if you are in a rural area and you barely have 4G, 5G, okay, then it's just going to compress it and it's going to give it to you at that. But if you are in a major city or you are somewhere that has fiber lines, then you can have it at full, right? Because we can solve that. I think that just because somebody might not have full, capability and bandwidth doesn't mean that you then don't give to everybody else.
True. Yeah.
Exactly. True. That's it. I'm going to save that. Just you saying true to me. Right. But, and I would think too, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can tell me this. I would think in nursing and medical is where you would want the better resolutions.
Yes. Yeah. But absolutely. Like I think if you're doing the likes of suturing and stuff like that, we have been looking at 4K cameras. We have been testing out a couple of different 4K cameras, and yes, I totally agree. That's where you would want it in house. I just worry about if you're trying to do a hybrid environment that you're going to have students in the rural area. If it can come down and if they're not losing the student experience as we were discussing while they're hybrid, yes, it works. But I think this it's also with the likes of the user collaboration software, whether you're using Teams or Zoom, that the software is being developed constantly for the staff member and the student to get the best experience. But it's also our job as AV management to make sure that the staff understand whether they are working in a classroom, whether they're working in a clinical education center, like we've integrated Wolf Vision in, but we're going to spend the next, I say, year, not just the first term, the next year, doing demonstrations on a monthly basis, lunch and learn sessions. Come in, see the equipment, play with it. You can't break it. We have the full control of it. Press the buttons, drag the camera down onto the stage. Look, now you link the two rooms together in a matrix. They have to, if they're not using it, they won't learn how to implement it, and different experiences and different, not just different experiences, but if they're using it in a lunch and learn, that gives them the ability to go, Justin, can we do this? Can we record in this room while I'm doing something else in this room? That's, and if I have to say no, that's where I should be going back to the developers or going back to my colleague or my team and going, we need to make it so this can be done. There shouldn't be an answer of no, it can't be done. And you will get that more if you have brought in an integrator, given them a scope or her a scope document, created a end-looking project phase, and then you find out that, oh wait, there's going to be a new course coming online, whether it be medicine, whether it be science, whatever, and they want to do something different. And then all of a sudden you go, like, it goes back to my original point. Not every classroom is universal. So it's getting the right people in the room to talk about the right things and the right scenarios. And that can change a dozen times during a year, because there could be new courses, there could be new micro credentials, there could be, diplomas, certs, masters, whatever.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think especially in your discipline where there could be all these changes. I think, and again, that might be a difference too if you're looking at general use spaces. Because general use could have, you don't want to over, I don't know what the right words are. I need everything standardized when I'm talking general use, because it could be, a history class at one time, then a physics class the next class, and then, an architecture class the next class. So if I go too specific in one area, I won't be able to serve the other areas effectively.
Exactly. Yes, yeah. And I'm sure like that's a fine balancing act when you have a university the size of USC to make something that universal.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's where simplification It's like,
Mhm.
see, I go the other way. That's why I always never understood those who, when I walk into some places, this is my pet peeve. Here's my pet peeve. When you
Okay.
walk into schools and it's like a billion different inputs. You can do this and you this. We have a document and we have this and we have this and we have this. And I'm like,
And I look at our GUI that's on our touch panel that you go,
yes,
"Whoa, there's too many
I know.
buttons on this."
It's like if the thing can do it, there's a button for it. Like, why? No, I want the complete opposite. I want ultra simplification. I want lowest common denominator,
Mhm,
and then figure out how to bring your own device so that the user can personalize their experience.
mhm. That's
That's
exactly
what I want to do.
yeah. Now, like, let's go to some of the projects that you have implemented on USC. Like, you have a full esports arena
Hmm.
recently. Surely there's that many different type of esports that there's a prime example of trying to give a student experience where you're going, okay, right, what games are you going to be playing on esports? What scenarios are you going to be doing on esports? Because there could be
There
hundreds
could
of
be
different
tons.
games.
So you
Yeah.
have to create somewhere where they can log in and it becomes what they need. And that's what you have to do. And again, and even looking at it going, well, that's one thing for the esports team. But what about the casual gamer? Or what about the person who's a game designer? Or what about
Yeah.
the content producer? Right? What about the broadcaster? Right? There's so many other disciplines, not just the gamer. So you want to, again, it's creating high quality equipment. I'm not saying cut corners when it comes to the equipment and the all that, but lowest common denominator. Make it work for everybody. And then if you have a specific use case and a reason, come to me with the reason of why you need to be the exception. And then you know what? We'll put that under an advanced button. I'm not going to change my entire, UI and GUI
Mhm,
just for that one exception. I'll get you a button in the corner that says advanced, and then you click it, and then you can select your personalization, right?
mhm,
And I think that's kind of the key, and figure out why you need it. And I think that's one of the things that I always look at when I do a meeting with somebody, and I'm doing that kind of that first initial site walk, or I'm doing the first initial understanding the customer needs.
mhm,
I'm always looking at it from my lowest common denominator, our base standard. Why does this not work for them? Right?
mhm.
I don't need to listen to, I need this and I need this and I need this and I need this and I need this. Because here's the thing, half the time they ask for it anyway and they don't even have budget for it. Right.
Yes.
And then it comes back, and then you got to value engineer it. And then and half the time they're saying it without actually understanding the tech behind it, and they realize you can get everything you need to do in another
On the
way.
basic UI, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Like,
And
how many times would you say that if you're let's give a normal project that you're working on, classroom or whatever, that's multi-purpose room. How many times do you think you have gone back on that Z project and changed the GUI, for example, because someone's asked for something else?
once,
Once. Okay. Uh,
once.
okay. Yeah.
That was
So
probably it.
yeah. And again, that comes down to, have you had the right people in the room at the very beginning, telling you their scope, telling you their scenarios,
Yeah.
and then create the project plan and the scope document. You
Well,
know.
and also, here's the thing. It also comes down to this. When we decided our standard,
Mhm,
we also got, one of the first things we did was we brought in academic senate and student senate, and we had a ton of feedback to start with.
mhm,
We talked to all the users before we designed so that we could cover all the needs from the beginning,
mhm.
so that odds are we were already taking care of them. We didn't just say, okay, well, what works for us? What do we think it should be? Or get one random faculty member. We got a slice from across the university, and then figured out, okay, if you walk through and you tell me the 15 things you need, and then the person B tells me the 15 things they need, and person C tells me the 15 things they need, I guarantee you probably 12 of those things were actually consistent to
Same.
everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I made that the base. The room works without doing anything. All 12 of those 15 you can do just as soon as you turn the button on, and it does all of that stuff automatically.
Joe, not always does the faculty know what they want.
Well, true,
The
but
engineer.
that's our job to
That's all.
be translator.
Yes. exactly. Yeah, and that's it. And being able to show them different sites that might have different products. Like it was it was difficult to draw up what Wolf Vision could do for us until they actually seen it in the flesh and were able to go, wow, and we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this. Oh, can you do this? Yes, you know, uh, and bringing those types of things in, and like that's us with our clinical education center. I would love to wave magic wands across some of our lecture theaters and make changes, and again, it goes down to if I had a magic wand, I would be making a lot of rooms more hybrid on the fact that we have this student accommodation crisis and housing crisis here in Ireland. So,
Yep.
yeah. How do we wrap this show up?
I know. I
I
was
don't
going to
know.
say, do you see the little live thing? We've been on for almost 51 minutes.
Yeah, and
Is that
if
crazy?
people are listening to the program in audio, you can contact myself at Justin or Dawson on social medias and Justin or Dawson.com. Joe, we better give some contact details out as well.
Yeah. At Josiah Way on all of the socials. And it's just josiahway.com. And then, of course, this is a wonderful higheredav.com/hetma.org podcast. So make sure you check out both of those.
Do you know what? Like we discussed this earlier, and we have to wrap up sort of with like Twitter and X. And do you now? We had this great conversation on AV in the AM and on the new social media brand X. Do you know what I noticed lately in Ireland? Every media outlet says X, formerly known as Twitter. So formerly known as Twitter. But I don't really get this whole X thing. You can X me. It sounds very pornographic. You can X me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's going to take some
On
getting
to,
used
on to
to.
socials.
It's going to take getting used to. But again, like we've had the conversation last time, it doesn't surprise me because it just follows everything else that Elon does.
Mm.
But yeah, no,
Here's the
you
question:
can
is this
access.
cage fight going to go ahead
I don't
between
think it's
him?
going to happen.
No, I think it's all hype. It's just like
Hmm.
mudslinging virtually at each other. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, guys. You have a better chance of myself and Joe Way going head to head in a cage fight than Elon and.
Yeah. Well, do we want to do that? We can do that at ISE. Oh, we got a cage match.
We get some of the inflatable boxing gloves or something like that.
Oh, that would be fun.
That'd be fun.
We
Yeah,
should do that. All right. I think there's a good, charity opportunity there.
yeah.
Uh,
Especially when people are having competitions about eating pizza and pineapple. That's a good plug there. That
yeah.
well, I'm not sure
Yeah.
we could do something a bit similar.
Well, we'll have to figure it out.
Yeah,
A sangria off who can every time
I,
we
I
got.
don't I don't like sangria. Yeah,
But when in Barcelona,
yeah, we have to do something.
Barcelona,
Yeah, we have maybe a bull race.
bull ride. Well, you can't do that anymore. It's illegal
Can we
now.
not?
Yeah, it's illegal. I know.
What
Animal
even with
cruelty.
inflatable bulls or something like that?
All right. So let's wrap it up. Here's your final question then. Since let's bring it back to student experience. What is the one tip that you want to give our listeners, our tech people, to be successful at the start of the year for the student experience?
Listen to the students.
That's good. Yep.
Mhm.
I like it. I like it.
It's short and simple. Listen to the students. You know, um, like whether they be undergraduate, whether they be postgraduate, build on their experience. It's going to be a mixture of people that are based in Dublin, people who may be traveling afar. Does all classes have to be in person, or can they be hybrid? Can they be virtual? And make it easier for them when it comes up to assignments and OSCEs and examinations, especially in the school of nursing. That it's a nice experience. They shouldn't feel like they're going through hell and back again to get their certificate, diploma, or otherwise. So
Yep.
make it. Listen to the students.
Yep. And my piece of advice is be empathetic and understand this is a very stressful time, both for students and the faculty. And we're here to help. This is a time where
Joe's not. Joe's away for the next while.
okay, but you can reach out to me. Like I can be here for moral support.
Moral support.
Moral support. Say what? The moral support. All right, here comes the music. Can you hear the music? We got the music.
That means that we're running out of time, Manuel.
I know. We're doing well. All right. So what the heck is going on with this song? Wait, it was just a shot in the dark song. So on that, everybody, please remember, as always, all the opinions expressed here are not necessarily those of any sponsors of the show, our respective institutions, or all of that stuff. Make sure you reach out to Justin Dawson. You reach out to Joe Way. You see all this stuff. I don't know why we're just pointing around. I don't know. It feels like that how we're supposed to end this. I don't know. That we're doing our first video. We're double digits. Episode 10, first video. There we go. Here's the overlay. Goodbye.